Welcome to Agent Amigos Talk. Today, the green card marriage trap, inside the DOJ's war on sham weddings. This is DOJ green card marriage scheme. Sit back, this is going to be worth your time. Part 1, Chapters 1 to 7. Picture this, you're standing in line at a government office, clutching a folder of documents, your heart racing. You've waited years for this moment, the chance to become a lawful permanent resident of the United States. For millions around the world, the green card is the golden ticket to a better life, a chance to work, study, and build a future in the land of opportunity. But what happens when that dream is twisted into a commodity, bought and sold like a used car? That's exactly what the Department of Justice has been cracking down on in a series of high-profile cases involving marriage fraud. You see, for as long as there have been immigration laws, there have been people looking for loopholes. And one of the most notorious loopholes is the sham marriage, a wedding that's not about love, but about a legal status. The DOJ calls it a marriage scheme, and they've made it a priority to dismantle these operations. But here's the thing, this isn't just about catching criminals. It's about protecting the integrity of our immigration system, which is designed to reunite families and welcome those who genuinely qualify. When fraudsters exploit that system, they don't just break the law, they undermine the trust that makes legal immigration possible. In this talk, we're going to dive deep into the world of green card marriage schemes, from the desperate immigrants who pay thousands of dollars to the brokers who profit from their vulnerability, and the federal agents who spend countless hours uncovering the truth. We'll look at real cases, real consequences, and the human stories behind the headlines. So buckle up, because this is a story about love, money, and the law, and it's far more complicated than you might think. So what exactly constitutes a sham marriage in the eyes of the Department of Justice? It's not just a couple who got married quickly or a marriage that seems a little unconventional. No, a sham marriage is a marriage entered into for the primary purpose of evading immigration laws. That means the couple has no genuine intention to live together as husband and wife. They might meet just days before the wedding, exchange vows in a quick civil ceremony, and then go their separate ways, except for the paperwork. The key element is intent. If the marriage was designed to get a green card, it's fraud. Now, how do these schemes work in practice? Often, a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident is recruited to marry a foreign national for a fee. The spouse might be promised a few $1,000s, or even a cut of the profits if the immigrant pays a broker. The couple might stage photos together, open joint bank accounts, and even live together for a short time to fool immigration officials. They'll memorize each other's favorite foods, birthdays, and pet peeves, just in case they're questioned separately. But the DOJ has gotten very good at spotting the red flags. Inconsistencies in interviews, lack of cohabitation, and financial arrangements that don't add up are all telltale signs. In recent years, federal agents have conducted stings, going undercover to pose as brokers or even as potential spouses. They've uncovered entire networks of fixers who connect immigrants with willing citizens, often using social media and encrypted apps to communicate. The scope of the problem is staggering. Estimates suggest that tens of thousands of sham marriages are filed each year, and that's just the ones we know about. But here's the thing, each one of those fraudulent applications takes a spot away from a legitimate immigrant who played by the rules. And that's why the DOJ is so determined to expose these schemes. Let's talk money, because that's what drives most sham marriages. The going rate for a marriage-based green card can vary wildly, depending on the location, the urgency, and the PE. In some cases, a U.S. citizen might be paid anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000 just to say I do. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. The immigrant, desperate to secure their status, might pay a broker anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000 or more for the entire package, including finding a willing citizen, preparing the paperwork, and coaching them through the interview. And if the immigrant is already in the U.S. without legal status, the price can go even higher, because they're paying for the hope of a life without fear. But the financial cost isn't just monetary. There's a huge emotional and psychological toll. Imagine paying your life savings to a stranger who could disappear at any moment, or worse, turn you into authorities if you don't pay more. Many immigrants are victimized twice, first by the system that makes legal immigration so difficult, and then by the very people who promise to help them. The DOJ has seen cases where brokers extort immigrants, threatening to expose them if they don't pay additional fees. And what about the U.S. citizens who participate? They might see it as easy money, but they're risking serious prison time. In one recent case, a woman from Texas was sentenced to 18 months in federal prison for marrying multiple immigrants for cash. She thought she was just helping people out, but she was part of a criminal enterprise. The price of love, as it turns out, is much higher than anyone expects. Behind every sham marriage, there's usually a broker, a person who arranges the whole thing for a fee. These brokers are the architects of the scheme, and they're often part of larger criminal networks that span multiple states and even countries. They have lists of U.S. citizens willing to marry for money, and they have lists of immigrants willing to pay. They coordinate the logistics, the marriage license, the ceremony, the photos, the joint bank accounts, even the fake love letters. Some brokers are immigrants themselves, who see an opportunity to make a profit off their own community's desperation. Others are career criminals who see immigration fraud as just another revenue stream, alongside drug trafficking or money laundering. The DOJ has broken up several major rings in recent years. In one operation, federal agents in New York arrested more than 30 people involved in a scheme that arranged over 100 sham marriages. The brokers charged between $10,000 and $20,000 per marriage, and they even offered discounts for bulk deals. They used coded language, like referring to the marriages as contracts and the immigrants as clients. They would hold wedding workshops to teach couples how to pass the immigration interview. The level of organization is astonishing and terrifying. But here's the thing, these brokers are not moss. They're greedy opportunists who exploit human vulnerability. And they're not immune to prosecution. Many have been sentenced to long prison terms, and the DOJ is constantly working to identify and dismantle these networks. But as long as there's demand, there will be supply. So the question is, how do we stop the cycle? Investigating marriage fraud is like peeling an onion, each layer reveals another, and it can bring tears to your eyes. The Department of Justice uses a variety of tools to uncover these schemes, and it starts with tips and leads. Sometimes a suspicious neighbor calls in, or a jilted ex-spouse reports that their partner married someone else for money. Other times, immigration officials spot red flags during the application process. But the most effective tool is the undercover operation. Federal agents pose as brokers, as immigrants, or even as potential spouses. They infiltrate the networks, gather evidence, and build cases that can take years to complete. One of the most famous stings was Operation Wedded Bliss, which targeted a marriage fraud ring in Los Angeles. Agents set up a fake law firm that offered marriage services, and they recorded hundreds of conversations with couples who came in to arrange their sham weddings. They even held a mock wedding ceremony for one couple, complete with a fake minister and cake, before arresting them on the spot. The evidence was overwhelming, the couples had no idea they were being filmed. But investigation isn't just about catching people in the act. It's about building a case that will hold up in court. That means gathering financial records, phone records, and witness testimony. It means proving that the marriage was fraudulent, not just unconventional. And that's often the hardest part. In a country where people marry for all sorts of reasons, convenience, green cards, even reality TV, how do you prove what's in someone's heart? That's why the DOJ relies on patterns of behavior. The couple never lives together, they don't share a life, they don't know basic facts about each other. It's circumstantial, but when you have enough pieces, the puzzle becomes clear. Let's zoom in on that Los Angeles sting operation, because it's a perfect example of how the DOJ works. In 2016, federal agents launched a massive investigation into a marriage fraud ring that was operating in the LA area. The ring was led by a woman named Maria, who had been in the U.S. for over a decade and had herself entered through a sham marriage. She saw a business opportunity and started arranging marriages for other immigrants, charging up to $25,000 per client. She had a network of U.S. citizens, many of them homeless or drug addicts, who she would pay $2,000 to $3,000 to marry her clients. She even had a notary public who would help with the paperwork, and a photographer who would take staged photos of the couples in romantic poses. The operation was uncovered when one of the U.S. citizens came forward to authorities, admitting that he had married several women for money and felt guilty. The agents then went undercover. They posed as a couple looking for a sham marriage, and they recorded meetings with Maria and her associates. They also monitored the weddings, which were often held in parks or cheap chapels, with no family or friends present. The evidence was damning. In the end, Maria was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison, and dozens of her clients were either deported or had their green card applications denied. But the case also highlighted the human tragedy. Many of the immigrants were not hardened criminals, but desperate people who had paid their life savings to be part of a scheme they didn't fully understand. The DOJ has a saying, "You can't legislate love, but you can prosecute fraud." And that's exactly what they did. Behind every statistic, there's a human story. And in the world of green card marriage schemes, those stories are often heartbreaking. Take the case of a young woman from the Philippines, let's call her Anna. She came to the US on a tourist visa and overstayed. She was working as a nanny, sending money back to her family. When her visa expired, she lived in constant fear of deportation. A friend told her about a broker who could arrange a marriage to a US citizen for $15,000. Anna didn't have that kind of money, but she borrowed it from relatives and agreed to make payments. She met her husband only once before the wedding, a man in his 50s who was homeless and needed cash. They signed the papers, took a few photos, and went their separate ways. Anna thought she was safe. But when she went for her green card interview, the officer asked questions that she couldn't answer. "Where does your husband work? What's his favorite food?" She stumbled, and the officer became suspicious. The interview was postponed, and Anna was referred to the fraud detection unit. She was eventually arrested and put into deportation proceedings. She lost everything, the money, the hope, and the life she had built. And she's not alone. There are countless stories like hers, from all over the world. Some immigrants are even more vulnerable, they're victims of trafficking, or they're fleeing violence, and they see a sham marriage as their only escape. The DOJ recognizes that these individuals are often victims themselves, which is why they offer a pathway to legal status for those who cooperate with investigations. But it's a hard choice: testify against the brokers, risking retaliation, or face deportation. Conclusion: protecting the system, protecting lives. The human cost of marriage fraud is not just about the criminals, it's about the collateral damage. And it's something we all need to think about as we consider the bigger picture of immigration reform. Part 2, Chapters 8 to 14, to be provided in next response. Audience Q&A, your questions answered. Continuing the same Agent Amigos talk about DOJ green card marriage scheme. Audience Q&A, your questions answered. Here is the deeper story. Think about what we have covered so far. Now, extending the discussion, every major point in this talk connects to how DOJ green card marriage scheme shapes the way we see the world. The examples are everywhere once you start looking. Experts and everyday people alike are talking about this right now, and the conversation is only getting bigger. Here are 3 more angles worth considering in detail. First, the history: how did we get here? Second, the present: what is happening right now that most people miss? Third, the future: where is this heading, and what should you do about it? Let's take each one in turn and go deeper than the headlines. That is what makes this topic so compelling. It is not just information, it is a shift in perspective. And when you finish this talk, you will see DOJ Green C. Deep dive, key concepts explained. Continuing the same Agent Amigos talk about DOJ green card marriage scheme. Deep dive, key concepts explained. Here is the deeper story. Think about what we have covered so far. Now, extending the discussion, every major point in this talk connects to how DOJ green card marriage scheme shapes the way we see the world. The examples are everywhere once you start looking. Experts and everyday people alike are talking about this right now, and the conversation is only getting bigger. Here are 3 more angles worth considering in detail. First, the history: how did we get here? Second, the present: what is happening right now that most people miss? Third, the future: where is this heading, and what should you do about it? Let's take each one in turn and go deeper than the headlines. That is what makes this topic so compelling. It is not just information, it is a shift in perspective. And when you finish this talk, you will see DOJ green card mar. What this means for you. Continuing the same Agent Amigos talk about DOJ green card marriage scheme. What this means for you. Here is the deeper story. Think about what we have covered so far. Now, extending the discussion, every major point in this talk connects to how DOJ green card marriage scheme shapes the way we see the world. The examples are everywhere once you start looking. Experts and everyday people alike are talking about this right now, and the conversation is only getting bigger. Here are 3 more angles worth considering in detail. First, the history: how did we get here? Second, the present: what is happening right now that most people miss? Third, the future, where is this heading, and what should you do about it? Let's take each one in turn and go deeper than the headlines. That is what makes this topic so compelling. It is not just information, it is a shift in perspective. And when you finish this talk, you will see DOJ green card marriage scheme different. Thank you for watching Agent Amigos. If this talk sparked something in you, hit like, subscribe to Agent Amigos, and share it with one person who needs to hear it. Knowledge is better when it is shared. See you at the next talk.